What's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brooke and today we're going to be talking about sourdough. I recently tried to make sourdough sandwich bread and it absolutely failed. But then I tried again and it got better last time, so I'm gonna try it one more time and we're gonna do it together to see how it goes. So let's do it. First thing we're gonna do is feed my sourdough starter. Then we're gonna wait for it to rise and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so it has been a couple days because I've had some health things going on, but I am going to complete this sourdough recipe. I ran out of bread like 2 days ago, and so I really need to make some sandwich bread, so that's what we're gonna do. I've got a mixing bowl here. So what I'm gonna do is take my starter, which has doubled. I just took the rubber band off, but it started about there and then you can see kind of where it doubled. And you always want to work with an active starter. So I fed this last night and it's been not quite 12 hours, maybe like 10 or 11 hours. So what I like to do is I have my bowl on a scale so that I can not dirty a ton of dishes. And we can just weigh things out, which is a lot better as far as accuracy. Okay, I'm gonna take my sugar and put about 12 grams in my bowl. See, my tablespoon put 16 grams in the bowl. And so that's why we weigh things. Then I need 1 1/4 cups or 300 grams of water. And I always use distilled water, filtered water, something like that. Never tap water for my starter when I'm feeding it. We're gonna do 300 grams of water. And then I'm just gonna heat that up in the microwave for a little bit until it gets to about 85, 90 degrees. You can tell by like touch kind of the temperature of the water. Your body's about 98 degrees, so if you don't really feel the water, or if it's a little bit colder than your body temperature, then it's going to be about right. Or you can use a digital thermometer, which is what I'm going to do. So my water is sitting right about 90 degrees and I heated mine up for about 30 seconds, but obviously it's going to depend on a lot of things, you know, the bowl you put it in, how warm your water was before you started heating it up, how much water, and all that stuff. So I'm gonna put that in there. Then I'm going to take my starter. I'm gonna put 65 grams of starter into my bowl. You can test to see if your starter is ready by putting a very small piece of it into some water to see if it floats. And if it floats, you're good to go. If it doesn't float, then it might need a couple more feedings. So, I can see that I have a pretty small piece floating around right now, so I know that my starter is ready. But also, I've been working with this starter for a few months now. However, I'm about to go out of town, and the longest I've been without feeding my starter, I've never slowed down the fermentation, like put it in the refrigerator or anything. So the longest I've gone without feeding it is probably 3 or 4 days. I'll be gone for 6 days. So what I'm gonna do is probably do a little bit of research on slowing down the fermentation, probably feed it the day before I leave, and then I will put it in the refrigerator. I got a little bit more than 65, but that's fine. We need 15 grams of oil. So I'll just zero out my scale, put in, oop, and we got 17, but that'll work. So I'm just gonna whisk this up. And that is combined. Next thing we're gonna do is add flours and salt. So generally I use organic all-purpose flour and organic whole wheat flour for my starter. So normally when I make my bread, I use organic bread flour and organic all-purpose flour. So what I'm gonna do is zero out my scale. I'm gonna add 400 grams of this bread flour. And then I will use 100 grams of the all-purpose flour. I'm gonna add 9 grams of salt. Yeah, okay, that's just 1.5 teaspoons. I know it looked like a lot, but it's fine sea salt, so it doesn't weigh very much. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna mix it in the bowl. It's gonna be a rough dough, and then you're just gonna kind of finish it with your hand so that it forms into a ball. You don't want a ton of extra things on the outside of the bowl, so you wanna try to scrape it good, get everything incorporated. Then we're gonna let it rest for about an hour. Then we're going to form it into an actual bowl, and a bowl is just like a dough ball. And it's gonna be smooth, and so we'll work it for a little while until it becomes smooth, and then we're gonna plop it back down in the bowl and cover it, and then that's going to bulk rise for about 8 to 10 hours. It is almost 8 o'clock right now, so we'll probably start our bulk rise about 9 o'clock, maybe a little after, and then the end of our bulk rise will be 7 p.m. And then you form it into your loaf, put it in the loaf pan, then you're gonna have your second rise. A lot of people say to do about 1.5 to 2 hours on your second rise, but sometimes I find that my house is not warm enough so it doesn't rise that quickly. So a lot of times I make my second rise go even longer, sometimes 6 to 8 hours. And that's just up to you. You can let it rise as long as you want, as long as it doesn't over ferment or start falling. So let's do it. Just kind of mix it. It's gonna look pretty shaggy. And what I'm doing is just kind of scraping the edges so that we get all of that liquid and flour into our shaggy dough. All right, it's at the point where mixing is not really doing a whole lot. So I'm just kind of pressing it into itself to hydrate all of that flour that's on the outside. Sometimes I'll like pick up the loose pieces, stick it in the middle, and kind of squish it down. But you don't want to overwork your dough either, so just kind of mess with it until it comes together. My dough is coming together. Like I said, it's pretty shaggy. What we're gonna do is just leave it there. I'm gonna cover it with a damp towel and let it sit for about an hour. And you know, the past 2 times I've made this bread, I've covered it with a damp towel, but I might actually try saran wrap this time, because I know with some breads you can use saran wrap and it works, and I just wanna see how that does. So, just kind of do that action. And you don't want it to be like airtight, so I'm not gonna like press it down too much. Leave a little gap here and there. And then I'll just set it to the side. And right now it is 7:46, so I'll come back to it at 8:46, and then we will work it into a bowl, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so it's been an hour. There's definitely something down in there because there's like a fog on my paper. So this is what it looks like. It's still lumpy. And what it's gonna look like in a minute is a smooth dough ball. I think I might put it out on this surface. So I'm just going to lightly flour and kind of flour my fingers a little bit. That way I can work with this dough ball. So already you can see it's kind of smoothing out. You couldn't see what I just did, but I just did a few stretch and folds. And kind of what I'm gonna do is just kind of pull it towards me and twist, and that's gonna kind of tighten the bottom of it to where it's nice and smooth. And now it's a nice smooth dough ball. And now we're gonna start our bulk ferment. So just put it back in the bowl, cover it, and let it sit for 8 to 10 hours. It is right at 8:50, so about 6:50. We'll see where it's at. So I went ahead and finished the bulk ferment. I pulled it out, dimpled the dough. I'm gonna kind of show you what it looks like in the loaf pan. Now, it's been sitting for probably close to 45 minutes to an hour. It hasn't risen a whole lot, so we're just kind of waiting on it to rise. And honestly, that may be overnight, so we're just kind of waiting on it to see. Now, the difference in my starter from this morning to right now is pretty significant. It has more than doubled. I will update y'all once this bread goes in the oven. The last time I let it rise the second time for probably close to 5 hours. We'll see where it's at. I believe I put it in there around 5 o'clock. So we'll see where it's at around 10 if I'm still up. If I'm not up, it'll probably be in the morning. Hopefully it doesn't over ferment. We will see. This has really been the most unflattering video, but it's fine. It's the next morning. I just woke up and I checked on my dough. I ended up leaving it out all night to do the second rise, and it's definitely risen, not as much as I hoped. So that just kind of verifies that like it doesn't need to sit that long. But I'll kind of show you what it looks like. I've got my oven preheated to 375, and then I will bake it for about 40 to 45 minutes. So that's kind of what she looks like. It's definitely risen from when I put it in there, but not as much as I had hoped. And it is domed, so it's taller in the center than it is on the sides. And yeah. So the oven just said that it's preheated. Last time that I baked a loaf, it rose a lot in the oven. I am using a different dish than I used last time, Last time I used a glass baking dish, and so I'm just gonna see how this does and go from there. But I'm about to throw it in the oven, and then we'll have an update in about 40-45 minutes. Okay, so the bread just came out of the oven, and I really think that it over fermented because it didn't rise a whole ton. It rose some, but it didn't rise a ton. The middle part of it is pretty tall, but the edges are not. Anyway, so this is what she looks like. It's kind of a little short loaf, and I always have this issue where it busts open on the side. I think I need to score it down the middle so that it doesn't do that. So maybe on my next loaf I'll score it, but this is what she looks like. My other one was taller when I made it last time. So, moral of the story, probably should have baked it last night and not this morning, but it is what it is. I'm gonna slice it up and we'll have tiny sandwiches.